Shields up, Iron Breakers. Work here coming at you with another video, and today we're going to be talking about Anthem because apparently yesterday, as soon as I was done uploading my latest Anthem video onto YouTube, there was a roadmap released by BioWare where they talk about the short-term plans for Anthem, and we're going to be talking about that. But there was also an AMA happening earlier today on Twitter where a couple of BioWare devs asked a lot of questions that people have been asking about Anthem, and I picked a couple of the responses to talk about some specific topics that I feel are still somewhat pertinent. So anyway, let's get started. The first thing I want to show you is this image right here, which is a part of that roadmap. They're calling this the gameplay calendar. The ongoing narrative of Anthem begins. So apparently this is going to be the story that they're going to be telling once you finish the actual story in the starting campaign. I guess that's what we're going to be calling it now, because it's not like the main campaign. It's just the starting campaign, because the campaign is going to continue. As a matter of fact, throughout a lot of the answers in this AMA, the developers have said that this story is never going to end. There's not going to be like a hard credits like you usually get when you finish a game. You're just not going to finish this game. They're going to continue to evolve the story up until God knows when. So basically, I think we got to look at it as episodic almost, if that's the way that we're going to be talking about it. But either way, you guys can see that the very first thing on the gameplay calendar is that the launch is going to be on the 22nd of February, even though we already know the real launch is on the 15th of February, but you have to be on the PC Club and be a part of EA Origin Access Premier to actually play the game on the intended release date. You guys know that I'm a little bit salty about that. I'm not going to go too much more in depth into it. There's a whole video talking about it, but you guys know that I'm salty, and that is not going to change. Anyway, moving onwards, they say here, Act 1, Echoes of Reality, which begins in March. Now, that is a lot sooner than I would expect, because the game launches on the 22nd of February, so basically you're saying 1 week after that, you're already beginning to add new content on top of what already exists in the game. And then we have two more entries in terms of Act 2 and Act 3, but these are not unlocked yet. They're saying Cortex entry lock, not exactly sure what that means, but we can see that Act 2 is definitely going to involve scars. Now, I predict that Act 1 is going to be more about Ash Titans, and we'll get into more detail about why that is. So Act 1, expect that to be themed around Ash Titans. Again, I could be wrong. That's just my expectation. And Act 2 most likely is going to be themed around scars, because you can see that the creature that is there is clearly some kind of scar. And then finally, Act 3 appears to be more lore heavy, but I think that Act 3 is going to be about exploring the origins of the Shapers, because you can see that this is more of an old depiction, like something that someone carved on a wall somewhere, or something along that line. And if you kind of apply that to a real world example, where do you usually get this? In ancient civilizations and stuff like that. So could there have been a civilization before the civilization that currently exists in the world of Anthem, the civilization that is in Fort Tarsis, and could have that civilization actually been around before us? And could this be somewhat related to how they interacted with the Shapers? I don't know. I have no idea, but just looking at that image, that is what comes to mind. So now let's take a closer look into Act 1, because that was the other image that they released, where clearly they say here starts on March 2019. It is called The Echoes of Reality, and it is separated into 3 updates, and each of these updates is going to bring different things. So you guys can see below each of the pictures, there's going to be what each of these updates is going to bring. So we got here new events, quality of life, new rewards, expanded progression system, new stronghold, guilds and leaderboards, new missions, as well as a cataclysm. Now, the way that I'm looking at this, we got update 1, which is the evolving world. So one of the things that they've been telling us pretty much since they announced Anthem is that the world is going to be pretty much its own entity. It is going to change as events take place in the world of Anthem. And looks like we're going to get our first glimpse at this system in March. And I got to tell you guys, I just hope that whatever they do, they modify a whole lot more than they did with that open demo event that we had, the Cataclysm, because they basically build the hype up for that event. Like nobody's been like, oh my God, what is happening? This crazy looking sky, look at this. And then everybody logged in, everybody was going crazy. Oh my God, what is happening? This crazy storm, all this stuff is, and it was basically like, hey, here's a boss. Here's this ancient Ash Titan, which was not even that hard to fight, and essentially as models for enemies come by, that was just like a bigger version of an Ash Titan, which was a model that we had already seen. So to say that that particular event felt a little bit underwhelming is very much an understatement. So I really expect you guys to bring your A game this time, because otherwise, you know that everybody else in the industry is going to be pointing at that event and laughing. So seriously, bring your A game with this first update of the Evolving World. We really need to see what is going to happen, because I think that March is going to be very much a key month for Anthem, because either people stick with Anthem throughout March, or if during March you see a large people leaving the game, then Anthem is going to be struggling for a good long while. That's not something that I want to see, but we'll see what pans out. Either way, with this first update, I believe that the of the features that we see here on the bottom section of the picture, I believe that the ones that we're going to be seeing are the new events, the quality of life, the new rewards, and potentially the expanded progression system. Okay, so new events basically mean new public events, which is the type of events that we've seen in the demo, but they're probably going to add some new ones. They're going to expand the ones that are already there. Quality of life, I have no idea what they're adding. New rewards, again, not exactly sure what they're adding there, but potentially they could be associated with the new events. An expanded progression system, there's a lot of things that instantly come to mind when we're talking about expanded progression system. The very first thing that came to mind when I first saw this is inscription re-rolling. But again, this is very much speculation on my part, because the very first time that they were asked about re-rolling inscriptions and items, now inscriptions are the little modifiers like, hey, this weapon has plus 10% ammo, or this weapon has plus 10% pickup radius, or whatever, right? The first time that people asked them about it, they said, no, there's not going to be re-rolling of inscriptions, you're just going to have to get new items. But since then, they've actually said that they are considering rerolling inscriptions on certain items, so we'll see if that is a possibility or not. But like, this information is constantly changing, because they're constantly saying stuff on Twitter, and every now and then it's almost like, hey, we've said this thing, but completely forget about it like 10 minutes later. It's insane. The other thing that it can be is that there was a tweet that I'm going to be talking about later, but this could also mean that you might be able to swap the ultimate abilities on your javelins. I'll talk more about that later, but those are the two things that came to mind when we're talking about expanded progression system. Anyway, the second update, which is Stronger Together, this to me is most likely going to be the update where they will deploy guild functionality, which is not going to be available on release of the game, but they have stated that they will implement guild functionality into the game so that you can build your own games, your own guilds, and have people join them, and there will be rewards associated with that. And what would make sense to me that would come with this update would be a new stronghold, because, you know, stronger together. Strongholds require people actually banding together in order to do them. Well, there's matchmaking naturally, but basically you can't do maybe you can do stronghold solo, but it's probably going to be hard as hell. So ideally you would want to have an actual group to do strongholds. So that would make sense to me. So I would expect the new stronghold to come with update 2. And as they say there, guilds and leaderboards is also going to be coming. And then finally we have update 3, the Cataclysm, which is, I think, where we will see new missions and a new Cataclysm. And why do I say a new Cataclysm? Because you guys got to remember something. When you begin playing the actual story, there's already going to be a Cataclysm in place, which is the Heart of Rage. That is going to be the very first campaign that you will ever do in Anthem, is going to be the campaign about the Heart of Rage, and that is going to be about shutting down a Cataclysm. So essentially, they predict people to be done, I would assume this would be close to the end of March. They're like, okay, by the end of March, most people are expected to have completed the campaign. And as such, that is going to be the time at which they are going to open a new Cataclysm, and we'll have to figure out exactly how we go about shutting down this Cataclysm. And that is going to be interesting, because here's the thing, they're adding all this content on the month of March, which is like barely a week after the game officially releases. Now, personally, I would rather the game be a little bit more front-loaded, but at the same time, I can't really judge what is and isn't going to be in the game because I haven't experienced it yet. The one thing that everybody always talks about, and I've talked about it myself, is the 3 strongholds. There's only 3 strongholds, but it's like we don't know how expansive legendary contracts are going to be. We don't know just how many legendary contracts are going to be. I've already heard certain content creators say that, you know, some of these legendary contracts feel like strikes. They just happen to take place out into the world, you know? So who knows how much legendary contracts are going to bring in terms of content to actually judge the game on simply 3 strongholds. As a matter of fact, one of the things that I meant to bring up in my previous video, but I forgot, is like, you guys remember when Monster Hunter World launched, right? And I know that there's a lot of people like, oh, I only got 200 hours out of Monster Hunter World. And I'm like, I would say that's quite a lot, but whatever. I got way more. I got like over 1,000. But what I'm saying is, like, when Monster Hunter World launched, if you boil it down to what content was there, you got 5 maps total, and 31 monsters, if my memory serves me right. That was the content that you had for Monster Hunter World. Sure, everything was tied together through story missions and all that stuff, but out of those things, I've gotten over 1,000 hours. So, then again, I'm maybe a little bit off the regular gamer chart because I was addicted to that game. I am addicted to that game. But what I'm trying to get at is, like, quantity is not everything. It's about how they manage to utilize the assets that they have available to them in delivering us that content. I'm not saying that the game has perfect endgame or anything like that. I don't know. I haven't experienced it yet. I don't know. For all I know, maybe it doesn't have it. Maybe I'll play through the game and, like, after the first 2 days, I'll be like, wow, this was pretty short. I don't know if that is going to be the case or not. But, you know, just sitting here saying it's only got 3 strongholds, maybe its endgame is not just the strongholds. Maybe the strongholds is just one out of many activities that you can do. I don't know. I don't have all of the answers. What I can tell you is that this particular roadmap seems rather interesting in how soon we're going to be accessing some of this new content. So we'll see how that turns out. Either way, I also want to talk to you guys about some of these questions that were placed in the AMA. So the very first one is one thing that everybody definitely complained about a whole lot. Justifiably so, by the way. I'm not disagreeing. I think it was ridiculous how slow you moved in Fort Tarsis. But Ben Irving goes on to say, when answering a question from Dopamine here, GFX101, will there be a running or at least a way to walk faster in Fort Tarsis? Update on Fort Tarsis movement for launch, sprint speed increased, movement speed, responsiveness, and camera improvements on the 22nd of February. So it looks like beyond just increasing how fast you can move in Fort Tarsis, they also felt the need to increase the responsiveness of camera and movement. I don't know exactly. That feels kind of weird. But either way, anything that improves the Fort Tarsis experience is welcome because I was very, very, very underwhelmed with Fort Tarsis. Another question that they received from JDM757, will there be different ultimates you can equip later on? And this was one of the things that I wanted to bring up in regards to that whole, what was it, updated progression system thingy that we talked about earlier, which is Ben Irving's response to this was, we think this is a cool idea. So I think that while the game, when it launches, you know, they're going to have their ultimates set in stone. Each of the javelins will have their ultimates set in stone like we've had in the demo. I think that eventually one of the things that they will add is a gear slot that you can equip ultimate gear onto, and that would change your ultimate. Very much like you have for all the other abilities, you would have like a gear slot for your ultimate ability, and I think that that would actually be pretty damn sweet because it would increase the number of builds that you can do, combining different ultimates. It would expand the roles that certain javelins can take, and you know, static abilities are never like something that is super fun. It's nice to have something that you can swap around, and that's one of the reasons why I think that that could be something that can come in the progression system. Whether or not that is going to be the case remains to be seen. The other question that they answered is, will some bosses have unique drops? So this was something that I brought up in a couple of my videos, which is the concept that everything was going to be random. And at launch, everything is definitely going to be random, but they are looking into certain bosses having unique drops of their own so that you can focus your efforts in grinding specific gear that you want. And again, just like I said, for the crafting of masterwork items, this is very much a good thing, because anything that reduces the RNG that goes into you getting geared up and making the builds that you want to do is always going to be a positive change. So if I'm able to grind a certain boss to get a specific piece of loot, that's good, so long as the chances of getting that piece of loot are not atrocious, because I don't want to look at a Kulf to Roth situation in here, okay? Now, moving onwards, players are very concerned about the complexity of cataclysms and if they are anywhere near on par with endgame raid content from other games. Can you please describe them in further detail? Thank you. So, this person wants to know if Cataclysms is going to basically be the raid equivalent of other titles. And Ben Irving goes on to say, we want them to be aspirational, meaningful, challenging, requiring high levels of coordination. Something that I like. I like when certain things require high levels of coordination, and a place to earn the best rewards in Anthem. So it seems like Cataclysms are going to be taking the raid spot, but the thing that I wanted to take away from this particular tweet is that this is where you will be able to earn the very best rewards in Anthem. So you can imagine that one of the things that you're going to want to be running as fast as possible if you're chasing after that endgame gear is going to be that GM level 3 Cataclysm run. With the bullet sponginess that everybody is so passionate about. We shall see just how bullet spongy shit is going to get. But that is going to require a lot of farming on the previous GM tiers, I'll tell you that right now, because GM3 is going to require average legendary level for you to go through. So yeah, either way, Cataclysms looks like that's going to be as close as you're going to get to a raid-like experience in Anthem. Now, the other question is, will there be elemental weapons / bullets? And Irving says, not at launch. We want primers and detonators to be gear focused. We may add weapons that do elemental damage and don't cause combos, however. So I guess I just talked myself into saying yes. Yes, there will be in time. So I find the interesting thing here to be that he specifically says they don't want guns to be priming and detonating, because there was some kind of a legendary that they showed in the original loot livestream, the livestream where they went over gear and equipment. They showed a specific gun that would actually prime targets, and then you could detonate them with gear and stuff. But looks like that is not something that they want to do. But at the same time, they're saying that there will be elemental weapons in time. And the reason why this is important is because, you know, if you have a lightning enchanted weapon, that means that you'll be able to take down shields faster, because lightning deals more damage to enemy shields. If you have an acid enchanted weapon, it means you'll be able to take down armor faster, because acid deals additional damage to armor. Shields is the blue gauge on top of an enemy's health, whereas armor is the when an enemy's got just like a full yellow health gauge instead of a regular health gauge. So, you know, a lot of people are going to be chasing after these energy weapons because they're going to be the best way to break into the tougher enemies. So as soon as that stuff launches, that's going to be a big ticket item. That's definitely something you don't want to miss out, which is why I want to talk about this particular question. Now, moving on, we have another one, which is, with primers and detonators being so powerful, what incentive do players have of using abilities that do not fall into one of these categories? And I've received this question myself a bunch of times. And it's like, before I read Ban's answer, I just want to point out to you guys that even if primers and detonators are super important, each ability has like its own feel to use. And not all of the abilities, just because they prime or detonate, is going to be something that you will want to use, because maybe you want to get a different effect. For instance, one of the things that I was not a big fan of was like the Seeking Missiles in the Ranger, because they don't actually deal AoE damage. They're single target damage spells. And I'm much more into dealing, you know, AoE damage, and the Ranger probably has the least AoE damage of all of the javelins. So I picked like a skill that was not a primer or a detonator, was the Spark Beam, which at the start I didn't even think I was going to like it, but I ended up picking that up because it was a great source of single target damage. but it didn't detonate or prime. But then I used my melee to prime my targets, and I would use a grenade to detonate them, thus allowing me to actually achieve the AoE damage that I was looking to get, while at the same time still having a viable way of dealing single target damage that was cool, but it wasn't a detonator or a primer. But anyway, Ben Irving's response to this is they do more damage than a detonator or a primer that doesn't combo. It's all a personal choice based on how you play, your team makeup, and the difficulty of the content. So basically, if the other abilities are not used to actually perform a combo, this will deal more damage than those abilities, okay? So basically, it's about personal taste, a lot of it. So particularly me, I really like that Spark Beam on the Ranger. It's real good. Anyway, another interesting thing that I saw here from Mark Dara was that Kalia Rodriguez asked, she didn't even make a question, she just said, I'm going to take 2 weeks vacation planned for the release of this beauty. And Mark Dara is extremely confident because he goes on to say 2 weeks is not going to be enough. Now, it's like, really? Like, imagine if this person plays like, I don't know, 8 hours a day for 2 weeks straight. You're telling me that she's not going to be like she won't have experienced all of the content available in the game? That is, that's a pretty ambitious claim right there. One of the other things that I thought was interesting, because I thought that we were going to be able to have private free play sessions. I thought that was going to be something that we were going to have in the game. Turns out that is not the case. Chad Robertson here says, in reply to Kevin, who asked, can free play have a private session option? Sometimes you just need to explore a world on your own. Sorry, no. So you're not going to be able to go into free play privately. I was not expecting that. Really wasn't. But anyways, those were all the questions that I picked from Twitter, and I just figured I'd get this all together into one video. What do you guys think about all of this new information? Let me know in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this video, hit it up with a like. It helps out a lot. If you did not enjoy this video, hit it up with a dislike. Feedback is always important. Thank you very much for watching. Remember, if you like my content, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, and I'll see you guys in the next one.